So for a little bit of backstory, I'm a 22-year-old female named Sydney. I live in a small town in Silverton, Colorado. I didn't know where to upload this, so I decided to hurriedly put it here in hopes whoever sees it will stay clear of this awful place. I had just dropped out of college and needed a job desperately. I had gotten kicked out of my parents' house because my pets repeatedly wrecked their house. The animals were sold to another family, and I was expected to take on my own. My father always wanted me to grow up anyway. I had seen an ad in the newspaper about one of the local restaurants in need of the night shift staff as soon as possible. Not having anywhere to turn, I gave the place a call. The restaurant owner answered, and I had mentioned seeing the ad in the paper. He asked me to come in, took my resume, and did a quick interview. It was a little bit strange, but because of how desperate I was, I thought nothing of it. After an hour or so, he told me that I was hired and would be working effectively immediately. I was glad I landed a job, as I had just enough money to rent out a cheap apartment a few blocks away. The boss told me his name after the interview. He was an older man in his late 70s. His name was Sean, and that he had owned the building for somewhere around 25 years. I asked him about why the current staff couldn't work the night shift, and why he so desperately needed someone. He gave a quick explanation that gave more questions than answers. He responded that the current staff couldn't perform in the night shift after what happened 3 years ago. I dropped the question for now as I wanted to seem professional. So I asked him, what would I be doing on the night shift? He thought for a second. You will be bringing in the boxes from the delivery trucks, taking them to the storage room, and restocking any of the items that need it. Anything left over in the boxes can just be set aside in a corner of the room. After that, you'll be cleaning up the eating area, sweeping, mopping, and wiping down the tables and chairs. After you have done all this, you will padlock the fence in the delivery area and retire to the security room. There are cameras that will show you the interior and exterior of the building. Just watch and make sure nobody tries to break in and steal anything. If anything were to happen, dial the police, then call me. I don't care what time it is. Looking nervously at his watch again, Sean turns and starts to head out the door. An overwhelming swirl of duties reached my gut, and I called out to him, but in his hurry, he either ignored me or just didn't hear me. I knew what my job was, but I didn't know everything I needed to know, and everything felt so rushed. It was easy to let everything topple over me. Grabbing a uniform from Sean's desk, I took it out of its plastic and went to the bathroom to change. It was a one-size-fits-all, but a bit big. Although I figured I would be able to talk to Sean and get a smaller size tomorrow. Learning about the layout of where I would be working didn't seem like a bad idea. So after I locked the front door and switched off the neon open sign, I sucked down my worries and headed to the security room. It was a small, quaint room at the end of a staff hallway, just across from the manager's office. It was filled to the brim with security images on dim screens, but not much else. Stepping inside to take a look at the post I would be using for the unforeseeable future, I noticed a small envelope on the floor near the corner. The contents inside were loosely shoved in, almost as whoever used it hid it in a rush. In blue letters, the front side of the envelope was addressed to Newcomer. I was the newest worker they could possibly be referring to, so I picked it up, wondering why it was in such a condition. The start of the letter was written in rough, jagged words, like the writer made it in a panic. The letter read, "How do I even begin? The shitstorm has already begun. It's too late for me. I knew something was wrong, but I needed the money. I didn't know. I mean, how could I have fucking known. This letter is here to remind you exactly what you need to know. For if you shall ever be in my footsteps, you don't make the same mistake. Do not take my words lightly. These mistakes will lead to less than desirable outcomes, and you won't like what happens. Rule number 1. As soon as the restaurant closes, you will hear the delivery truck pull up. You will also hear the sound of boxes being unloaded. Stay inside the building and watch the cameras that are stationed in the back. You will see 2 workers unloading boxes. If they even begin looking at the camera, look away. They must not know you are watching. But once they pull away, you may collect the boxes, and you must lock the gate. Take them to the storage room, 1 box at a time. Stock the shelves normally. They will be labeled. This should be easy then. Rule number 2. After you stocked all the boxes on the shelves, and if you are doing general cleanup, you may hear the sounds of someone in the kitchen. It is not an intruder. Do not investigate. Do not call out to them. I don't know what the fuck it is, but please, please, tread carefully. After you've finished your cleaning duty, ignore the kitchen and quickly walk to the security room until 11:30 p.m. That's when it leaves. Rule number 3. There is a key in the security room wall. After it leaves the kitchen, lock the bathrooms. If you need to use them at any point in the night, be very quick. If you hear any faint whistling, you have about 30 seconds to get the hell out of there. Once you have left, lock the doors back. Never forget this step, as it is vital that when not in use, those doors remain locked. Rule number 4. After all your general tasks are completed, stay in your security room until 3:30 a.m. At that point, you will do your annual sweep of the building. Check every room but the bathrooms. Do not touch anything. Do not move anything, and keep everything in its original place. Trust me, it may seem tedious right now, but it's something that must not be broken. After your sweep, quickly return to the security room. Rule number 5. The boss shows up to work every day at 6:30 a.m. and always waves at the camera to let you know that your shift is over. I don't know why, but some mornings, even if my watch says 6:30, I will see the boss pull up and walk to the entrance. If he does not wave, do not leave your room under any circumstances. He will not have a key and will stare at the door for 30 seconds. After the time is up, he will turn around and leave. If you look at your watch again, the time will likely read 5:45 a.m. I don't know why this happens, but always make sure you see a wave before you leave that damn room. Rule number 6. Once the boss enters the restaurant, you will always greet him with a handshake and report that everything was all quiet. You will give him the same report every morning. Do not deviate this report, and once you have given him your report, you may clock out and leave. At this point, head straight for your car. Do not talk to anyone that tries to stop you for any reason. Pull out of the parking lot, and you are free to return to your normal life in the morning. What you do after this doesn't matter, but you better show up for work 20 minutes before closing. Always. Do not miss this time. Rule number 7. This is the most important rule that I will give you. I figured this out the hard way, and I almost paid for it with my life. I hope you don't go through the same thing. If you break any of the prior rules I have told you, or if you screw anything up, you will hear 3 taps on any glass window or door near you. Depending on where you are when one of these rules are broken, this indicates that you only have 1 minute to perform this next task, so you better act fast. Go into the supply closet where the power breaker is. Turn everything off, except for the bathroom lights. Quickly, make your way into the security closet and deadbolt it. Turn off the monitors, and whatever lights you may have left on must also be powered off. It has to be pitch black in that room, because whatever these fucking things are, they will be very attracted to any light source, and can open whatever door that they sense has light in it. Locked, deadbolted, it doesn't matter. If there's a light on, there is no stopping them. That's why I told you to keep the bathroom lights on. They will be attracted to that point, and that point only. They will leave if they find nothing, and after 5 minutes of silence, upon leaving the security room, you will find both bathroom doors wide open and the lights off. Shut the doors, lock them, and flip the breakers on. If they're still there after 5 minutes, there was another light on somewhere, and they believe once all known rooms with light have been found empty. Listen. Try to stay quiet, and make sure your phone is powered completely off. That's how I learned about the light situation. If your phone light turns on, turn it off wherever you can before they see it, or see you. They will look into a dark room and leave. If it's early in the morning and there is sunlight, this will not affect them. The only people who will see these creatures are the staff who work within its walls. Take my caution to my words and stay safe. When you find this, I may already be dead. Do not enter the basement, ever. What you will find, if you aren't dead, will drive you mad. I've seen co-workers come out of there crazier than anyone I've ever fucking seen. One last thing. Always remember. The letter cut out there. While reading that note, I found myself shaking uncontrollably. This had better been a joke. It certainly should be. But just as I decided that possibility, my eyes trailed up at the outside monitor. The delivery truck's backed in, and 2 workers quickly jump out. They started bringing the boxes inside the fenced area. I stared intently at them, still frozen from the letter. Of course, I was always really gullible. I decided the best course of action was to follow the rules of the letter. I didn't want to find out what happened if I didn't. My phone vibrated, and a force of habit drew me to check it. I knew I shouldn't have, but it was too instinctual. Upon looking down at my phone, it didn't show any notifications. Remembering rule number 7, I powered off my phone just in case something happened. The last thing I wanted was a text from someone that would get me killed. After tossing my phone back into my pocket, I solemnly looked up at the monitors. One of the workers was still unloading boxes, but the other was nowhere to be found. My heart skipped a beat. I urgently checked the other monitors to see if I could find the other worker. As I looked up at the front entrance camera, I was met with its face. No, I can't say face. What I saw staring back at me wasn't human at all. It took until the last tap of the nearby window for it to catch my attention. Shit! How much time has passed? I had to fucking run. I sprinted to the storage room with all the speed my adrenaline could handle. I flung the breaker door open and started flipping all the switches one after another. How much time had passed? There was no telling, but I didn't have any time to think. They would be on me any second. Finally, I had the last breaker unbolted for the security room. I heard another tap, signifying something. But what? that something was. I wasn't sure. Now wasn't the time to think about that. I threw the door open and tumbled into the room. If the desk had even been an inch to the left, I would have face planted straight into concrete. After slamming the door hard, I heard it. I couldn't explain what I had heard, but it would haunt me for the rest of my life. I yanked the deadbolt shut and slammed my head down into the wire that plugged it into the monitor, turning the system off almost instantly. Did I make it? I heard them. Their solemn banter. The groaning. That horrible groaning. If it indicated their announcement, I'd be okay. But if they somehow gotten inside, no, I wouldn't dare take those options. There was no light in the room, but the air felt cold. I was frozen solid there, as if I would have been killed on the spot if I took a single breath. I counted 4 or more. Couldn't tell. Their slow shambles all blended. The pain was almost indescribable. They wanted me. There was no resemblance of humanity left. Suddenly, there was a slam on the door. My heart skipped so many beats. I thought I could be dying. But even worse, I was too late. They knew I was in there. But could they even get in? The letters said they can only open the door of rooms with lights on. Right? Another slam shook me out of my thoughts. Then 2 more. Each slam caused me to believe my eardrums were going to burst. 3 more. 4. As they all made their way to the door, they slammed into it with all their might, leaving visible dents in the door. And then, it stopped. Everything stopped. The room went silent as I heard the slow shambling moving to the bathrooms. I hesitated before I looked back at the monitor. One door was brutally smashed open, as if they blew it open with the explosives. Then, in the next bathroom, the same thing. I closed my eyes, but that didn't stop the tears from spiraling down my cheeks. It was as if my chest was going to implode on me. How long had it been since I had taken a breath? Finally inhaling again, I slowly opened my eyes. Given I had spent enough time in the dark, my eyes had adjusted to the pitch black of the room, allowing me to see a few feet around me. There was no dents in the door in front of me, and no indication that anything was ever there. I looked at my wristwatch. Exactly 5 minutes had passed. I didn't know if I held my breath the whole time or if I passed out. I couldn't tell you. My ears were ringing, and it was like someone took a goddamn jackhammer to my skull. Opening the door to the security room, I peeked down the hall at the bathroom door. I couldn't see far enough in the dark to know if the doors had been blown open. I took out my flashlight and shined the beam at the restroom door. The sudden brightness of the flashlight temporarily blinded me until my eyes dilated. They were open all right, but more surprisingly, no damage had occurred. I could have sworn it sounded as if they blew them open with explosives. But there wasn't a scratch left on both the bathroom and security doors. It had just been in my head. Every question was met with a foggy answer. But what I did know was that I had a job to do. I headed to the storage room, guiding myself with the flashlight. I flipped all the switches on the breaker back on. Light filled the lonely restaurant, walking out to drop out point. I couldn't get the rules out of my mind. I had already broken one, and if that was a punishment for the rules getting broken once, I sure as hell didn't want to find out what would happen if I broke another. After I ran out, I grabbed as many boxes I could carry, which was a measly number of 2. It took about 30 seconds, each to transfer them to the storage room. Slowly, I got them all inside. I tore one box open to find tomato soup. I also found canned corn, green beans, you name it. There was a can of it. I slowly filled up the can shelf until the whole box was empty. Eventually, I emptied the rest of the boxes and took the remaining cardboard to the dumpster outside. I began to enter the main lobby as I recounted what my boss had told me. My next job was... Then I heard it. It sounded like... wrestling. There was a rule about it though. Shit. What was it? It hit me like a brick. I needed to do my annual cleanup, and I was to ignore all noises I heard. No interacting. Never check the noise. Never call out to what it was. I was glad I remembered that. The call was on the top of my tongue, but I did my best to shrug off the anxiety instead. I got to cleaning. Nothing sounded better than for this night to be over. I knew taking this job was too good to be true. No normal job needed a worker this bad, especially for the night shift. As I cursed at myself under my breath, there was a slam coming from the kitchen, like a pan had dropped on the floor. To be honest, I jumped hard. Still, I shook it off and finished off the main lobby. It was pretty easy since the restaurant was small. I headed back to the security room and peered down at my watch. The time read 11 p.m. Only 30 minutes left. Whatever was in the kitchen would leave soon. I plugged the camera monitors back in, then was greeted by a small and happy chime. Fucking wonderful. Even the monitors seemed to be mocking the situation I was in. Leaning back in the chair, I slowly scanned all the monitors. All I had to do at that point was for it to leave. Whatever it was. Then, I would be able to clean the kitchen and wait. The next 30 minutes dragged on like hours. But after a while, the continuous crashing and banging that was resonating from the kitchen came to a stop. I waited for an extra 5 minutes to be sure whatever it was had truly gone. Upon entering the kitchen, I realized it was surprisingly clean. What I saw didn't match the sounds I had heard just a mere minutes ago. But I wasn't gonna complain. That was the least of my worries at the moment. Still, having the uneasy feeling of being watched, I made sure I did enough to consider it clean, without going overboard. I had realized it until now, but I desperately had to use the bathroom. In all the commotion and panic, I guess I didn't really feel anything. I had the bathroom key on my person already, so it was going to be the easy part. The one rule that I remembered was to not be in there long. Wait for the whistling and get the fuck out. Rushing in, I did what I needed to do, but the whistling started way sooner than I had truly expected. It was a melancholy tune. I couldn't place a name, but again, based on my worries, I counted down the seconds. 23, 22, 21. Finally finishing what I needed to do, I got out of there with 11 seconds to spare. It was a little close for comfort, but the hard part was over. Slowly, I returned to the security room. All I had to do now was watch for any break-in attempts or anyone. Wait, did I padlock the drop-off fence? Had I rushed and forgot? My heart skipped a beat. Throwing open the door, I rushed out back where the fence was. It was wide open. My eyes shot open wide. Not only had I forgotten one of the most simple tasks I had, there was now a hooded figure standing right in the opening. I couldn't point out any features. All I could really make out was a rough outline. Whoever was inside the fence, easily towered over me. I had never been the strongest nor the tallest. I tried to run, but my legs just wouldn't move. No matter how hard I pushed, in a shaky voice I shouted, You shouldn't be here. So if you don't leave, I will call the authorities. The man stood there. He didn't move an inch. He didn't come in my direction either, did he leave? He made no sound at all either. I couldn't read whoever this was at all. I guess that's what happens when I am in complete darkness. Idiot, I muttered under my breath. Grabbing up my phone, I started to dial the police. When I noticed something warm, wet, running down my left thigh. I don't know how I didn't feel it instantly. Either adrenaline, anxiety, or just pure shock. Looking down, I found one of the similar lines from the kitchen in my leg. I have no idea how it got there. But the man had pulled down his hood. He looked easily 40. But the most defining feature was he had a normalish face. His eyes were there. So was his nose. But he was missing one crucial feature. One that is necessary for any human being to be alive. I realize now why he made no sound. Why the man made no threats. Why he didn't resist. He couldn't speak. Dropping the phone on the ground, I let out a horrible scream. He somehow threw the knife perfectly and got it stuck dead in the center of my thigh. I gritted my teeth, holding back another scream. The only medical supplies that I have seen in the building were in the supply closet. There were the basics: rubbing alcohol, gauze pads, painkillers, small bandages, and a small container of eye wash. But that was it. Turning around, I quickly stumbled back into the building, shutting and locking the door behind me. As quickly as I could, I made my way into the storage closet. I fumbled around, dropping some supplies onto the ground when falling onto my knees. While pulling my belt off, I fashioned a makeshift torrent around it, groaning in pain. I pulled out the knife. The pain was searing, holding back another scream. I lightly poured some rubbing alcohol onto the wound and started wrapping it in a gauze pad. I knew what I had to do. The moment morning came, I was gonna quit. I am not gonna work like this. Fucking fuck. I can't handle this job. It will be a miracle if I even make it till the morning. I'll look around to see if the hooded figure was anywhere in sight. He wasn't anywhere to be found, and I sighed in relief. I struggled to get up, but I knew I needed to. I couldn't just sit here and not do the rest of my job, and have a risk of getting caught. After getting up, I walked slowly to the security room, ignoring all the pain that was going through my leg as I was walking. I walked to the doors and sat down in front of the monitors, looking at all of the screens, trying to find the hooded figure. I looked at the screen, then at the camera looking at the back where the hooded figure was, and I didn't see him anymore. My phone was missing as well, and the gate had been locked. Maybe I should add another warning to the letter. To warn the newcomers just in case that happened to them, I said to myself. After I had finally calmed down enough to move, I grabbed the note that was addressed to the newcomer, writing another rule inside of it. If, by any chance, you break anything on Rule 1 and don't hear the tapping, do not try to lock the gates. Upon exiting through the back door, a hooded man with no mouth will be looking dead at you. There will be an attack on your life. Although, if you know at least basic medical practices, it shouldn't be lethal. Why the normal event of breaking a rule didn't happen though, I honestly have no idea. After writing the new rule, I put the paper in the envelope and set it down on the desk for the time being. The hard part was over. All I had to do now was sit in the office and wait for the clock to reach morning, right? As I slowly reached for the list of rules, an unknown sound caught me off guard. Had I not been on the edge from the experience, I would have totally missed it. I can only recall hearing it once. and I can't quite place what the sound was. Checking all the monitors and seeing nothing, I decided it would probably be best if I did one last check of the perimeter. Whatever the sound was completely caused any fear that I had to vanish. The only remainder was my leg, which was still screaming in pain. Limping out of the security room, flashlight in hand, I started a slow perimeter search, remembering rule number 4. I did my best not to disturb anything as I did my slow search. I would be considerably slowed down and probably wouldn't be able to make it to the breaker and back in time. I was just about to enter the security room when I noticed the noise again, just like the last time. It was very quiet, and I almost missed it. But at this point, I wish I had. Looking over at the basement door near the manager's office, I held my breath. I was sure that that's where I heard the noise from. But the rules. No. The letter said never to go down there. It wasn't a rule like the others. The punishment for breaking this one was madness. Death. I couldn't risk that, right? Convincing myself, I took hold of the security room door handle, and I heard it again. This time I was waiting for it. It was a quiet moan, as if someone or something was in pain. Letting go of the security room door, I took a shaky step in the direction of the basement. My whole body was screaming no. Every part of my body burned as I tried to stop myself from exploring, but curiosity got the best of me. As I got closer to the door, I heard the moaning again. It sounded like a woman. Nobody was here with me. Or so I thought. With a shaky hand, I slowly grabbed the door handle. It was ice cold, which I remember strange at the moment. But I wish that thought had been the end of it. That I would have gotten freaked out by the door handle and backed off. That I had been such an idiot. I don't have much longer. The darkness. The noises. I hear them all around me, like as if I had been blindfolded, left in a dark room, and people were walking around me in circles. I can't say where I am, so don't try to come looking for me. It was way too late. I should have just listened. I should have been more careful. Upon pulling the door open, an awful smell hit me, forcing me to my knees, just holding back the urge to vomit. Covering my mouth with my nose with my shirt collar, I headed down. I don't know why I thought that would help, but I guess it helped mentally. Not that it mattered anyway. There were lights leading down the stairway and to the right around the corner. The stairs appeared to be as old as life itself. Walking down the rickety old staircase, one of the stairs gave way, causing me to trip and fall. Slamming my head into the concrete floor knocked me out cold. Upon awakening, I couldn't fight it anymore. The smell. With shaky arms, I pushed myself to my knees and vomited. How could I have been so stupid? Taking my flashlight, I peeked into the other room, and the scene before me made my blood run cold. There were pentagrams on the walls. I finally figured out what the smell was. Someone or something was using blood to paint the walls for its own sick pleasure. The moaning had indeed come from a woman, but my mind wasn't ready to accept what I had seen. The creature was keeping that poor woman alive, while slowly cutting into her, taking small pools of blood into its skinny, linky fingers. I was frozen. I couldn't scream. I couldn't run. Tears started profusely running down my face when I made the one discovery that would haunt me for the rest of my life. The poor woman, who was slowly being tortured to death, was the one who had left the rules. I didn't know for sure, but she had the same uniform that I did. What else was I supposed to expect? What I didn't notice was the other two bodies. One was the manager's. In the opposite corner was a small skinny man in a dark hoodie. It was the same man that had attacked me at the gates. Or was it? I was in too much fear and shock to truly think about it, and the last thing I noticed was in the last corner between all the pentagrams was my name. Written in blood, bold as day. Dropping my flashlight, I got the hell out of there. I was practically tripping up the stairs to get away, to run from that place, to never return. But I did notice I heard no chase after leaving the building and turning around. Whatever it was not following me. I thought I had gotten away, hopping in my car and floated home, back to my parents' house. In a sobbing mess, I begged to stay for one last day. Hesitantly, my father let me in. Going straight to my old room, I threw myself on the bed. Covering my face, I screamed. I cried. I cursed at myself for ever taking that fucking job. It was my fault. I did this to myself. I passed out not long after exhausting myself, but I had only been asleep for 2 hours. That's when the noise started. That's when I'm writing this to you now. Looking at the clock, it says 6:25. With every second that goes by, the noises keep getting louder and louder. And the last thing that I ever did was watch the clock. It's 6:30.